Hey there YouTube, welcome to the last video in this series. We're jumping right into the action and slapping some Agrax Earthshade all over these shields. This is the last video in this series, which means we're going to finish up the shields, do the bases, glue everything together, and we can call this project finished. Alright, finishing this up and going to the next step. Okay, so we've got the shade on there. We're going to take a large Drybrush and Death Guard green, working from the outside in. We're not being too careful here, just bringing back some of that color and leaving the shade underneath those chaos stars. I'm really prioritizing the outside edge and the sides of the shield, getting some of the back, but leaving that shade there because it's not in direct light. So here I'm finishing this one up, and then we'll move through the rest of them pretty quickly. Our next step, we're going to use a smaller Drybrush and Elysian green to pick out some of those rough edges and the nicks in the shield. You can see me focusing on that hard edge on the bottom, and I'm going to go around the rest of the corners as well. So just double checking my work real quick, and this is what it looks like afterwards. So the next thing we have to do is Balthasar gold on all of the chaos stars. So we're going to take our medium and our small layer brushes, and we're just going to color in those stars. I'm focusing on the tops to make it look like this color is painted on, and just kind of taking my time here to make sure I don't overpaint things that I've already painted. If that happens, we can clean it up later. It's not really a big deal, but it does add a little bit of work when you're doing 16 of them. Okay, and this is what it looks like when we're done. We've done a lot of this already, so we're just going to do Agrax Earthshade really quickly. Just slap it on there. Don't have to be too careful, but we are using a medium layer brush, so we have a little bit more control. To finish up the front of the shield, we're going to take a large Drybrush and Balthasar gold, very quickly just touching the edges of those stars. With the bulk of our shields done, let's work on the details. We've got this hair and chain to do, and also those metal links. So let's use Leadblecher and get those done. Now that we've got that Leadblecher done, let's move on to the gloves on the back of the shields using our Dryad bark and a medium layer brush. You really don't even see these on the finished models, but I really like the consistency of having them all done. Here I'm doing the tuft of hair on the champion shield. Just gonna go in with Abaddon black and make sure that's nice and dark. Once that's done, we're just gonna shade all of the Leadblecher and the gloves. We don't need it to be too detailed, so we're not gonna do any highlights on those. We're keeping it real simple. And with that, our shields are going to be done. So let's move on to the bases. We're going to go ahead and use Armageddon dust for our bases. It's a base paint with a texture inside, almost like sand. So it's nice and chunky when we put it on our base. So you can use a regular paintbrush on the thinner base paints by Citadel, but on this one I have the spatula tool. I take a nice glob of it and I just put it on the base. Now we're going to take that same spatula and just spread it out thinly across the top of the base, making sure we have a little bit of texture and some waves like sand, but we also don't want it to be too thick. So as I'm doing this base, I come to the realization that my pot of paint is actually a mimic. So I gotta fight that off real quick, put it back in its rightful place, and we'll go back to doing this base. So it's not really hard to work with. There's nothing a little patience and a steady hand can't fix, really. And if you get any on the boots or the cape, you can just scrape it off with a knife really carefully, or the end of the spatula. So here I'm gonna fast forward and get the rest of these done. Now that we've got that base texture on there, let's grab our Anthonian Camoshade, which is a green wash. And we're going to be very heavy-handed with this. We want it to be really nice and green, and even get some green pools in there. It will fully dry, but there will be some spots where it's absolutely green and it gets rid of the yellow color. So our medium shade brush, a nice bit of paint on there, and just slap it on. So we've got that all over the base. This is what it's going to look like, and we will need to let this dry for a while. Being careful to avoid that wet paint, we are going to go ahead and glue the shields on. So I'm going to use super glue since most of it's already painted, and I can't use the plastic cement that I use on the rest of the model. Put a nice amount of glue on there, making sure it's in a place that you won't see. And I'm just going to hold it here until it gets nice and tacky, and I can let it do its work. Now with everything glued on and our shade dry, let's take our Tallarn sand and dry brush the bases. So we're going to take our largest base brush, get a good amount on there, and bring back some of that yellow color. We're not going to be too careful, we're going to avoid the model, but we're going to be pretty aggressive on the base itself. So this is the final camera angle change. It is my third one, and I don't know why I didn't think of this at the beginning. It makes so much more sense to do it top down so you can see what I'm saying. So here you can kind of see the difference. We're just bringing back that yellow color and leaving those pools of green in the recesses. So this last bit is my favorite. We're going to take Abaddon Black, and we're going to paint the rims of the bases. So with a wide base brush, I'm just taking that black paint, thinning it down enough so it gets good coverage and no streaks. So I don't have a brush that's exactly the right size of the rim, but that would be ideal here. That way we don't have to paint over things twice. But here I'm working with what I've got, and it comes out really well. So let's just slowly work our way around the rim, making sure it's nice and solid. But if we have to do a second pass, we'll go ahead and do a second pass. That way it's nice and smooth. Oddly enough, this is probably the hardest step for me. I want to see the model done and ready for the tabletop, and it's the last thing I paint, so I try to rush. But I have to fight that and make sure it's nice, smooth, and done well. And with that, our squad and our series is done. I'm really proud at how these came out, and I'm super excited to get them on the tabletop. I really learned a lot while I was painting these models, both hobby-wise and for YouTube and Twitch. If you want to see more content, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. You can also catch us on Twitch, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., Tuesday through Saturday. This week, we're going to be working on a D&D commission. It's a pretty big project, and I have an unboxing that went up yesterday. So we'll catch you in the next one, and have an amazing week.